Apparently there is a word for it now, Delulu, short for delusional. The internet uses it as a joke, sometimes as an insult, and occasionally as a compliment. But lately I've been thinking about it differently, because the older I get, the more I feel like being a little bit delusional might actually be necessary. Not because reality doesn't matter, but if I had only listened to what seemed realistic, I would have never done half the things that shaped my life. And maybe that's exactly why so many people feel stuck today. It's rarely because they lack talent or the opportunities don't exist. More often they stop believing in themselves enough to move forward something that doesn't yet make sense. I've been thinking about this a lot recently, especially after leaving my job. From the outside, it probably looked irrational. I had stability, a predictable income, free accommodation, well, provided by the company, a lifestyle that many people would gladly trade places for. If someone had showed me that life years ago, I would probably have considered it a success. And yet somewhere deep inside, I knew I couldn't continue. The problem wasn't that the job was so terrible. The problem was that every day I felt myself moving further away from who I actually was. And that's a strange feeling, because nothing appears wrong on the surface. You keep showing up and doing what's expected of you. You smile, you work, you travel the world, you collect experiences and keep moving forward. From the outside, your life seems perfectly fine. In my case, I was literally flying to destinations that people save for months or even years to visit. Tokyo, Bangkok, Sydney, Barcelona, Maldives. Places that many people dream about. And yet some of the most important realizations of my life happen alone in hotel rooms. Not while exploring a new city or standing on a tropical beach, but while sitting quietly with myself. Because no matter how far you travel, you eventually meet the same person, yourself. And if there is something inside you asking for attention, no destination can permanently distract you from it. For a long time, I thought maybe I just needed a change of scenery, maybe another adventure, another cool layover in a new place. But eventually I realized that the problem wasn't where I was. The problem was that I was becoming disconnected from myself. The part of me that once felt alive, the curiosity that used to guide me. The excitement I once felt about possibility, little by little, it was being replaced by routine. Not a bad routine, not a toxic routine, just a routine that no longer felt aligned. And that's what made it so difficult to recognize. When something is obviously wrong, actions become easier. When something's slowly draining your spirit while at the same time providing comfort, security, and stability, that's much harder to confront. Because the world rewards that kind of compromise. People congratulate you for it. They call it maturity, responsibility, being realistic. And maybe sometimes it is, but I also think there are moments when being realistic becomes another way of abandoning yourself. And that realization scared me. Not because I didn't know what to do. The truth is I knew exactly what I needed to do. What scared me was how long I kept postponing it. I think many people are in that situation right now. They don't necessarily lack clarity. What they're missing is permission. Permission to trust themselves, to disappoint expectations, to choose something that doesn't look logical on paper. Because we have created a world where almost everything is measured externally. Income, status, productivity, achievements, titles, followers. Everything except the one thing that matters the most. How alive do you actually feel? That's a difficult question. It's much easier to count achievements than it is to measure alignment. It's much easier to show people what you've been accomplishing than to explain why something still feels missing. For a long time, I couldn't explain it either. I just knew there was a growing distance between the life that I was living and the life that I felt called toward. And the strange thing is that whenever you start feeling that distance, people often encourage you to ignore it. Be grateful, be realistic, think about security, about the future, about what could go wrong. And to be fair, they are not wrong. Those things matter. But eventually I realized that being realistic had quietly become my excuse, not a wisdom. An excuse to delay change, to avoid uncertainty, to stay where I was because familiarity felt safer than the unknown. That's when I started asking myself a difficult question. What if the thing I called realism is actually fear wearing a convincing disguise? Because fear is clever. Fear rarely says don't do it. Instead it whispers maybe later. Maybe wait until you're more prepared, until you have all the answers. And before you know it, years have passed. You're still waiting and your life has quietly become a collection of postponed decisions. I didn't want that anymore. I didn't want to spend another year convincing myself that one day I would finally start living in alignment with myself again. I wanted to begin now, even if it looked irrational, messy, and other people didn't understand. Because when I look back at the biggest decisions of my life, every single one looked slightly delusional at the time. Leaving home, moving abroad, working in different countries, starting over multiple times, building a life that didn't follow the traditional path. None of those decisions came with guarantees. Most of them came with uncertainty, yet every single one expanded my life. Which makes me wonder how many people are waiting for certainty before they allow themselves to move. The irony is that certainty rarely comes first. Action comes first, then clarity follows. And that's where being a little bit delusional comes in, because every meaningful transformation begins before there is an evidence or any uncertainty whatsoever. You have to believe in something that doesn't fully exist yet. You have to trust the feeling before you can prove it. You have to move forward a version of yourself that you haven't met yet. From the outside, that can look a bit ridiculous. It can look naive, it can look irresponsible. But from the outside in, often it feels like the most honest thing you can do. Looking back, that inner voice has guided me better than any 5-year plan ever could. The problem is that modern life makes it increasingly difficult to hear that voice. There is simply too much noise, too many opinions, too many experts, too many influencers, too many people telling you how your life should be lived. Everywhere you look, somebody has an advice, a framework, a strategy, a blueprint. And while some of that can be useful, it also can create a dangerous illusion. The illusion that someone else knows your path better than you do. I don't believe that's true. Deep down, most people already know. Maybe not every detail, maybe not every step, but they know when something feels wrong. They know when they are betraying themselves. They know when they are settling for second or third best, when they are living according to expectations instead of truth. The difficult part isn't hearing that knowing, it's actually acting on it. Because acting on it often requires disappointing people. It requires uncertainty, it requires leaving familiar territory and risking a failure. Most importantly, it requires trusting yourself more than the collective opinions around you. That's what I've been rediscovering recently. Not confidence, not motivation, trust. In my own consciousness, in my own intuition, in the experiences that shaped me. And trust that if something inside me keeps asking for change, maybe it's worth listening. For months I ignored that feeling. I negotiated with it. I convinced myself it would disappear, but the feeling remained. Because some feelings aren't meant to be solved, they are meant to be followed. Eventually I understood something. The emptiness that I was feeling wasn't a sign that something was wrong with me. It was a signal that I had outgrown a version of my life. And it was time to move. A signal that my consciousness was pulling me towards something different. The scary part is that consciousness doesn't necessarily provide a detailed roadmap. It simply points and then asks you whether you're willing to trust it. And that's where I'm right now. I don't have everything figured out. I don't exactly know how the next chapter unfolds. I don't know where every decision will lead. But for the first time in a long time, I feel more aligned. And that feeling is worth more than certainty. Because certainty was never what I was truly searching for. What I was really searching for was aliveness. Aren't we all? A deeper sense of truth. And ultimately a life that genuinely feels like my own. So maybe being Delulu isn't believing that success is guaranteed. Maybe it means believing that your inner voice deserves to be heard. Having enough courage to trust yourself before the world understands. Choosing faith over endless hesitation. And in a world full of noise, expectations and distractions and opinions, that may be one of the bravest things a person can do. To stop living according to the crowd, to stop letting algorithms decide what deserves your attention, or following a script that was written by somebody else, and finally begin following yourself. If that sounds delusional to some people, maybe that's perfectly okay. Maybe the life that I'm trying to build right now would probably look delusional to someone who has forgotten what it feels like to trust themselves. And maybe that's the real meaning of being Delulu. Not losing touch with reality, but refusing to lose touch with yourself.